Hello, I am Super Orange Cat, and here I am for my quick review of the first episode of the new season of South Park, Season 23, entitled Mexican Joker. Now, the basic plot of this episode is Kyle gets sent to a detention center, nice detention center, thanks to Cartman. Who else would do that? And also, you have this backing plot with Randy realizing that many people are growing their own weed, their quote unquote homegrown weed, that he tries to stop. Now, overall, what South Park has had an issue with in the past is specifically debuting new seasons well. As you might know, South Park is a very week by week production show, so they usually incorporate events from specifically the week before into the episode, which is something that many people have really loved about the show throughout its run. And but the issue with that is with the first episode each season, sorry, they feel very tempted to try to include as many things as possible and to like go throughout like almost the whole year since the last season ended and try to pick like the biggest stories to lampoon. And this usually causes issues because each of these episodes usually end up feeling very rushed, like they're running through every detail. Like, oh, we have to cover this news fact, we have to cover this news fact over and over. And that's something that's very tempting to happen considering our news cycles getting crazier and crazier as time goes on. And this episode, what I'll give it credit for is it doesn't try to do too many things like the episode. However, I have some issues with what this episode actually does do. It's very clear from the episode they want to tackle the whole issue of ISIS detention centers, about the treatment of children within, and to really address like the social impact of that. However, it's like when they got to the detention center and they were at first lampooned the whole, oh, they're trying to make it feel good for the kids, but it's clearly not. It kind of sputters in a way because I do kind of like the concept of, oh, incorporating the new Joker movie that's coming out, saying, well, what if one of these kids like learns to hate the American government because of their experience and becomes a terrorist and becomes the Mexican Joker? And have the ICE detention agents take it literally, like on the surface level, instead of the more metaphoric level that Kyle was intending. Like, well, they're gonna hate the American government. They thought that one kid was gonna literally dress up, wear a sombrero, and put on Joker clown makeup and like become a terrorist that way. And have them try to attack that was kind of funny for a brief time, but the end of this plot line gets stupid. Like, not even in the good classic South Park being able to make things look stupid but be smart at the same time way. Because they have this ending where they do allude to it earlier, talking about what if we're in the flashback of the movie and like Mexican Joker already exists. But this is like the scene in the movie where it's like 20 years in the past what caused his trauma. And they later show that, oh yeah, this is the metaphorical flashback scene, and Kyle was actually the bad guy because he was converting everyone to Judaism because the whole thing, well, you can't do anything to the Jews or else you get strong criticism for being an anti-Semite, which I think is what the show was attempting to do with that scene, about how in a way you kind of have to treat Jews with baby gloves because of the trauma that the Jewish people have faced in the past, and the whole thing about being called a Nazi or called an anti-Semite being a large stigma. So you can do like, oh, inhumane stuff to Hispanic children, but if you do it to a Jew, they're on a special level. You can't do that to them, which is, I think, what they're attempting to do with this. But that was just very sudden and just kind of felt like you're just throwing a plot point out there. And also now back onto the Randy Marsh plot line, which I thought was a little better done. Although at the very beginning, it's just kind of a whole bunch of nothing because you have this whole thing with him realizing that his sales are down, him needing to sell his home people, angry people that are making their own homegrown weed so they don't have to buy it from his farm, him getting angry, trying to make it illegal, trying to get homegrown weed illegal, saying all these ridiculous things about him, like how the irrigation's going to drown your baby and stuff like that. Obvious fear mongering, which I think was supposed to be alluding to the whole reefer madness, like that phrase that hit in the 30s and 40s when marijuana became a social issue initially and got it made illegal in the first place. Yeah, fun fact though, marijuana was illegal long before the start of the quote unquote war on drugs. And especially Reefer Madness, that movie is pretty interesting because of how hyperbolic they are about the use of marijuana. Interesting watch for anyone. And back onto this main plot, Randy gets desperate and actually becomes a quote unquote homegrown terrorist by bombing all the people who have their own homegrown weed. And I think they're trying to attack the whole concept of the whole rise and like, oh, this homegrown terrorists, all these like shootings. I think that's what South Park was attempting to do with this. However, South Park, in general, with this episode, with this plot line, and with the ICE Deportation Center plot line, they haven't been able to nail like a point home. It just felt like almost like how I said the issues with the first episode seasons. They want to cover things, they wanted to cover like certain aspects of things, but didn't know how to really hammer in the commentary that the show has been able to do in past seasons, and even on occasion in recent seasons have been able to do. Like, for example, an episode like Put It Down, which is generally about Trump's use of tweeting. I thought the episode did a great job of handling. However, in this one, whatever social commentary was there was muddled at best. And also, you have this ending where it's like The Godfather with the Godfather music playing and Randy being like, "Well, I'm in charge now. I'm the dawn of marijuana for South Park," which is something I actually kind of like being explored in later in the season, which I think will. But at the same time, you have this thing where you're talking about like terrorist attacks within the country, and then now it's like, oh yeah, it's The Godfather. Like they could have had it be like a shoot 'em up scene, like the baptism scene from The Godfather, or made it more of a reference, like it's he was turning to The Godfather, or even better, have Randy Marsh actually turn into like the Joker or something to really connect the two plot points, which they kind of do by having the news say, oh, it's Mexican Joker who actually did all this. But again, although this episode does do some things well, there's some good jokes in it. I feel like it's just another case of the first episode of the season being underwhelming. What do you guys think? If I had to rate this episode, I'll say it's about a 6 out of 10. Not the best, but again, not the worst I've ever seen from South Park. What do you guys think? Did you love the episode? Leave your comments, leave your opinions about the episode down below. I appreciate your guys' input. If you like this, if you want me to keep doing like quick review content of South Park like this, please subscribe. Please hit that like button, hit that notification button. I am Super Orange Cat, and that is